In this video, I do a comprehensive set of scientific tests on the Mi Watch. First, I'll test the quality of the sleep tracking against the scientific EEG monitor. Second, I'll check the heart rate accuracy. Third, I'll take a look at the SpO2 measurements. And finally, I'll do a step counting test. As always, I do not want to waste your time, so timestamps are in the description below and also on the timeline. Hello everyone. For those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Rob and I'm a postdoctoral scientist specializing in biological data analysis. Now, before getting to the test, I'd like to provide the most important background information on the Mi Watch in under 30 seconds. The Mi Watch has 16 days of battery life with typical usage, has built-in GPS, is water resistant up to 5 atmospheres and has 117 sport modes. It has a 3.9-inch round display, and this display also has an always-on mode. It has sleep tracking, an oxygen saturation sensor, stress monitoring, and it tries to estimate your body energy. The sleep tracking only tracks nighttime sleep, and therefore daytime sleep, dozing and naps cannot be tracked. The Mi Watch is relatively cheap compared to other smartwatches, and I bought it for around 100 euros. However, my channel is not so much about listing features. Instead, on my channel, I try to test the accuracy of different measurements. Over the last few months, the Mi Watch and also the Mi Watch Lite have been some of the most requested devices. Today I'll review the Mi Watch, and in a few weeks I'll release a review of the cheaper Mi Watch Lite. In this video today I'll do a set of scientific tests, and since I'm in the unique position to test the accuracy of the sleep tracking algorithm, I want to start off with this sleep test. For the sleep comparison, I wore the Mi Watch to bed for 4 nights. At the same time, I also wore this portable scientific EEG device, and I recorded myself using an infrared camera. The EEG device can actually measure your brainwaves and muscle movements, and is therefore ideal for measuring your sleep stages. I manually went through the recording of the EEG and scored each part of the night for the different sleep stages. I couldn't find a way to export the data from the Mi Watch, so I ended up manually copying the data and loading it into the programming language I use. Now, to the results I obtained. Let's first have a look at the accuracy over the 4 individual nights, after which I will do statistical overview analysis. Here we see the first night I recorded. On top you see the sleep stages as they were recorded using the EEG device. Along the horizontal axis we have the time of night, and as you can see I went to bed a bit after midnight. On the vertical axis we have the different sleep stages, that being deep sleep, light sleep, REM sleep and awake. The sleep stages are plotted in the same order that they're usually displayed in research. On the bottom you can see a similar plot, but now for the sleep stages as they were recorded using the Mi Watch. If we first look at deep sleep according to the EEG, which are marked here in purple, we see a good overlap between the Mi Watch and the EEG device. The Mi Watch detected 2 out of the 3 deep sleep segments, however it missed one of them and it also missed the beginning of the first segment. Looking at light sleep, marked here in cyan, we see that most of what was light sleep was also detected as being light sleep. If it was confused, it seems to be mostly confused with awake time and REM sleep. Looking at REM sleep, marked here in red, this was detected quite well. The 3 major REM sleep segments were detected and only the shorter one in the beginning was missed. Some extra REM sleep was detected at the end of the night, but all in all this is not bad. To see the sleep cycles, I added non-REM sleep in blue and again marked REM sleep in red. Each sleep cycle starts with a combination of deep sleep and light sleep, together called non-REM, and always end in REM. I would say that based on just the data from the Mi Watch, I would be able to see most of the sleep cycles, except for the first one, since it was not able to detect a shorter REM segment. Looking at awake time detection, marked here in green, this was pretty good. The Mi Watch detected both awake moments, though they did last slightly longer than I was awake in reality. Detecting the moment I fell asleep was slightly delayed, as you can see here in yellow-brown, where it detected me falling asleep about 15 minutes later than I actually did. It was spot on, however, at detecting the moment I woke up. This is the second night I tracked. If we first look at deep sleep, we again see a really good match between the Mi Watch and the EEG device. The Mi Watch detected both deep sleep segments quite accurately. Now looking at light sleep, marked here in cyan, we also see a decent match. Most light sleep I had was also tracked as being light sleep, with only minor confusion with the other sleep stages. REM sleep detection was okay, though not great for this night. It detected 2 or 3 out of the 4 REM sleep segments, though they were much shorter than my actual REM sleep lasted. It also again missed the first shorter REM sleep segment. Even though the REM sleep segments are shorter, we would be able to see some of the sleep cycles, though definitely not all of them. Awake detection was okay for this night. It detected the longer awake moment but not the shorter ones. And again, the moment it detected an awake moment, it tracked it as lasting longer than it actually did. And similar to before, detecting the moment I fell asleep was slightly delayed in the measurement of the Mi Watch, but detecting the moment I woke up was spot on. For the final 2 nights, I just want to show you the most important highlights. First, looking at deep sleep, we see that for the 3rd night, the first deep sleep segment was detected, but the second one was missed. However, for the 4th night, the deep sleep detection was again spot on. For the 3rd night, REM sleep detection was quite okay again. Similar to the other nights, my first shorter REM sleep segment was missed. However, the other REM sleep segments were mostly detected, which also means we would be able to see the sleep cycles for this night. The REM sleep detection for the 4th night shows something similar. Most REM sleep was detected, though the duration is sometimes shorter. Awake detection for this night was also pretty good. All awake time was detected, however the total tracked awake time by the Mi Watch was much longer than I actually was awake. For the 3rd night, the awake detection was less good. It detected me waking up in the middle of the night where I was actually still asleep, and it missed my awakenings later in the night. The moment I fell asleep always appears to be slightly shifted in the measurements of the Mi Watch, as you can see here, and the same is true for this final night. So far, I'm quite pleasantly surprised with the sleep tracking quality of the Mi Watch. After reviewing the Mi Band 6 a few weeks ago, I did not have high hopes for the Mi Watch, but it actually seems to do quite well. Based on the individual nights, I would say that it's quite good at detecting deep sleep, light sleep and awake time. The awake time that is detected is generally longer than my actual awake time, but the timing is quite good. REM sleep detection shows the opposite pattern, where the amount of REM sleep that is detected is often lower than in reality, though the timing is often still quite good. Sometimes some extra REM sleep is also detected. To get an even more objective view of the results, let's calculate some statistics regarding the consistency between the sleep stages of the Mi Watch and the EEG device. However, first a quick side note. If you're interested in the latest updates on the wearables I'm testing, consider subscribing to my Instagram and my weekly newsletter. Of course, you would also make me really happy if you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Now, enough self-promotion. Let's see what the overview statistics say. First, let's look at the total percentage of each sleep stage the EEG device and the Mi Watch predicted. Here I displayed those percentages for the EEG device on the left and the Mi Watch on the right. Overall, these percentages agree pretty well. The Mi Watch predicts roughly the correct amount of deep sleep and REM sleep. It does, however, predict too little light sleep and too much awake time. However, as we already saw based on the individual nights, the timing of these stages is also vital. Therefore, more important even than these total percentages is checking if the Mi Watch predicts the correct sleep stages at the right time, and that's what I displayed here. On top we have the sleep stages according to the EEG device, and on the left the sleep stages according to the Mi Watch. Now each column here sums to 100%, meaning that we can see what percentage of each of the actual sleep stages was recorded as each sleep stage by the Mi Watch. First, looking at deep sleep, we see that about 77% of what was deep sleep was also predicted as being deep sleep. Most of the rest of the deep sleep was predicted as being light sleep by the Mi Watch. Light sleep was actually also predicted quite well. Almost 70% of what was light sleep was also predicted as being light sleep by the Mi Watch. If light sleep was confused, it was mostly confused with REM sleep, but also sometimes with awake time. The confusion with awake time is likely the result of the Mi Watch predicting too much awake time. Now we arrive at the sleep stage that the Mi Watch struggles with the most. Here we see that it classified about 44% of the REM sleep correctly. Most of the REM sleep I had was actually predicted as being light sleep. However, as we saw for the individual nights, the moment it predicts REM sleep were often pretty close or at the moment of actual REM sleep, which means we could still see some of the sleep cycles. So this low percentage might not be as bad as it initially seems. Awake detection was pretty good. 85% of the awake time that I had was indeed predicted as awake time. However, as we saw before, the Mi Watch does often predict too much awake time. If awake time was misclassified, it was mostly confused with REM sleep. Finally, I want to check if the Mi Watch detected me going to bed and waking up at the right time, which we already saw was a small problem based on the individual nights. On the vertical axis we have the days of the nights I tested the Mi Watch, and on the horizontal axis is the time difference between the EEG device and the Mi Watch for waking up in yellow and falling asleep in blue. So a positive number means that it detected me as waking up or falling asleep later than I did in reality, and a negative number means it detected me as waking up or falling asleep earlier than I actually did. And as you can see, the Mi Watch mostly detects me as waking up at the right time, as you can see by these yellow numbers here. However, it does consistently tend to see me falling asleep about 10 minutes too late, as these blue dots here indicate. Overall, I'm still happily surprised by the sleep tracking quality of the Mi Watch. It was quite good for most sleep stages, only with REM sleep did it struggle, though luckily we could still see many of the sleep cycles. Additionally, it does have a trend of predicting me falling asleep about 10 minutes too late. But how does this compare to some of the best sleep tracking devices I've tested so far? That is what I plotted here. On the top left we have the same plot we saw before, showing the performance of the Mi Watch. On the top right we have the results for the Whoop strap, on the bottom left for the Inspire 2, and on the bottom right the results for the Withings Sleep Analyzer, which you put under your mattress. As you can see, the Mi Watch performs quite well for deep sleep, light sleep and awake. However, its major issue compared to these other devices is during REM sleep tracking. If we compare it to the Fitbit Inspire 2 for instance, we see that overall the Inspire 2 performs better. However, I'm still happy with how the Mi Watch performed. For the next set of tests, let's take a look at the heart rate accuracy of the Mi Watch. To test the heart rate accuracy, I will compare it to the Polar H10 ECG chest strap, which is generally considered to be one of the most accurate consumer devices available for heart rate measurements. I wore both the Mi Watch and the Polar H10 ECG chest strap for 4 spinning sessions, 4 bike rides and 2 weightlifting sessions. That way I can check my heart rate at different heart rate ranges. Let's start with the accuracy during spinning. Here I displayed an overview of the heart rate accuracy during spinning. Each dot here is a single heart rate measurement, with along the horizontal axis the value according to the Polar H10 ECG chest strap, and on the vertical axis the value according to the Mi Watch. The blue line indicates perfect agreement, so any measurement along this line had roughly the same value for the Polar H10 and the Mi Watch. The red line indicates those measurements where the value according to the Mi Watch is half the actual value according to the Polar H10 ECG chest strap. The reason I added this line is because in the past I've seen that many devices measure half the actual heart rate when they make a mistake. The more measurements there are in a certain area, the darker black the color. As you can see, the Mi Watch performed pretty well during spinning, as most measurements are along the blue line. However, there are still some points away from the blue line, so let's have a look at the individual training sessions to see how good the match actually is. Here you see the first spinning session. Along the horizontal axis we have the time, and my heart rate is along the vertical axis. In blue I plotted my heart rate according to the Polar H10 ECG chest strap, and in red is my heart rate according to the Mi Watch. As you can see, I took 4 short breaks in this spinning session where my heart rate would dip. For this first spinning session, the performance of the Mi Watch is really good. It almost perfectly overlaps with the measurements of the ECG chest strap, with only minor deviations. Looking at this second training session, we see something similar with almost perfect overlap. For this third session, we see a slight delay at the beginning of the training where the Mi Watch needed to catch up with my actual heart rate. But overall, this is not a big deal. And also for this fourth spinning session, it's almost spot on. So far, this is looking really good. So let's now take a look at cycling outside, which I recorded whilst commuting to and from work. If I cycle outside, there are many more bumps and I also tend to sweat more in the sun, which might also influence the accuracy of the Mi Watch. Let's take a look. Here we see an overview of those measurements, and surprisingly the deviation between the Mi Watch and the ECG chest strap is now much larger. Especially below the blue line here there are a lot of points, indicating that in these moments the Mi Watch detected a too low heart rate. Let's take a look at some of the individual commutes to see why this is. Here you can see my heart rate for my cycling trip to work. Again, in blue is the Polar chest strap and in red the Mi Watch. As you can see, the watch really had some trouble accurately detecting my heart rate. Now on the way back, which you see here, it was slightly better, though it still missed some of the peaks in my heart rate. Now for the next day, I made sure to wear the watch even tighter and position it very carefully. So did that make a difference? Now this is the way to work from the next day. And again we see significant deviations between the Mi Watch and the ECG chest strap. Now the way back is again better, as you can see here, though it still shows some issues. It might be better on the way back since in the evening the sun is not shining so brightly anymore and I don't sweat so much. Next, let's see how the Mi Watch performed during weightlifting. Now weightlifting is notoriously difficult for wrist-worn devices because during weightlifting I flex the muscles and tendons near my wrist and this makes it hard for the watch to accurately detect sudden changes in heart rate. Let's take a look. This is an overview of my heart rate accuracy, similar to what we saw before. Of course, the average heart rate is much lower during weightlifting than during cardio workouts. You can see that while there are a lot of points along the blue line, there are also a lot of points below the blue line, meaning the Mi Watch detected a too low heart rate, and this is especially true in the higher heart rate ranges. Let's check if we can find out why this is based on the individual training sessions. Here we see one weightlifting session. Again, in blue is my heart rate according to the chest strap, and in red my heart rate according to the Mi Watch. You can see there's a pretty big disagreement between both devices. The Mi Watch is not able to pick up on the increases in heart rate that accompany each set that I did. We can see the same for this training session right here, where it was able to follow the overall patterns in my heart rate, but not the peaks in my heart rate for each of the sets. Overall, my feelings on the heart rate accuracy of the Mi Watch are mixed. During spinning, it performed almost perfectly, but during cycling outside, it did much worse. This could be because cycling outside involves much more movement, and potentially also gives more tension on the muscles in my arm because I have to steer the bike. The Mi Watch also did not perform well during weightlifting, but this is true for almost all wrist-worn devices. Next, let's take a look at SpO2 or oxygen saturation. In really simple terms, this is the percentage of red blood cells in the blood that contain oxygen. This can be important to measure because it can be used as an indication for several medical conditions. For instance, it can be used to 1. Detect sleep apnea, where you basically stop breathing for 30 seconds or more during sleep. 2. Keep track of lung diseases. And 3. Potentially detect respiratory infections such as COVID-19. In all these cases, your blood oxygen saturation can drop to anywhere from the low 90% to 60%. And normal ranges on the other hand are between 95 and 100%. To see if the Mi Watch can detect a low oxygen saturation, I measured my oxygen saturation while flying. In flight, the pressure in the cabin is decreased, thereby leading to a lower concentration of oxygen in the air, which in turn lowers the oxygen in my blood. Here you can see how during the flight my oxygen saturation decreased. Along the horizontal axis we have the time, and the vertical axis is my oxygen saturation. Now we had some delay, so we were parked and taxiing for quite a long time, and during this time my oxygen saturation was between 97 and 99%. However, as we flew higher, you can see it dropped to about 93%. And after we descended, my SpO2 levels rose again to normal levels. Now this profile here was recorded using a dedicated finger pulse oximeter, which I will use as a reference. At the same time, I also recorded my SpO2 using the Mi Watch. The Mi Watch uses reflectance pulse oximetry, basically shining light on your skin and measuring the reflected light. The dedicated SpO2 monitor uses the more established transmittance pulse oximetry, which shines light at one side of your finger and measures what comes through on the other side. Transmittance pulse oximetry is generally considered to be more accurate and is used in hospitals around the world. Let's take a look at the results. If we now plot the values according to the Mi Watch as green dots in the same plot, we get these results. As you can see, the overall patterns of the Mi Watch do not really agree with those of the dedicated finger pulse oximeter. The measurements of the Mi Watch were generally still high even when we were in the air, and honestly I cannot see any pattern that seems to indicate that the Mi Watch was able to detect my lower oxygen saturation. The values seem more or less randomly distributed over time. Overall, the SpO2 measurements of the Mi Watch do not appear to be very reliable, at least based on these results. The Mi Watch also features a step counter. To see if this counts my steps accurately, I went out and I took exactly 4,000 steps in segments of 1,000 steps. To get an accurate step count, I manually counted my steps using this tally counter. Let's take a look at those results. As I mentioned, for the step counting test, I went out and I took 4 times exactly 1,000 steps. I wore the Mi Watch on my right arm and I alternated holding the tally counter in my left and right hand for each set of 1,000 steps, which is what the left and right labels refer to here. Now these are the actual steps counted by the Mi Watch when I was wearing it on my right arm. And as you can see, they were really close to the actual 1,000 steps I took for each of the 4 segments, and it was never more than 9 steps off. Just to put that into perspective, here are the steps counted by the Mi Watch Lite and the Honor Band 6 I wore at the same time. As you can see, they generally performed about equally well, only the Honor Band 6 had a bit more deviations in the number of steps counted, but all in all this was minor. Next, I tested if the Mi Watch gives any false positive steps. With that I mean, does it count any steps when it's not supposed to count steps? To test this, I wore it while cycling to work and also while exercising on my home trainer. That is what I will display here. On the left I will show the results for cycling outside, and on the right for riding on my home trainer. Here you can see the results for cycling to work, which takes me about 20 minutes. Each row is a single time I cycled to or from work, and the left column is the total amount of steps counted, and on the right that's converted to steps per minute. As you can see, the Mi Watch counted almost no steps while cycling. At most it counted about 2 steps per minute, which is much less than while walking, which should be around 100 steps per minute. We can see something similar for while I'm exercising on my home trainer on the right here, as it counted less than 1 step per minute. Overall, the step counting of the Mi Watch is really good. It counts the correct number of steps while walking and counts almost no steps while cycling or training on my home trainer. The only thing I still want to test is if it counts any steps while walking with my bike in my hands or whilst pushing a stroller. I've heard from many of my subscribers that some watches count no steps while pushing a stroller. And it might be that if the watch is in a certain orientation, maybe horizontal like this, it will count 0 steps. Overall, I was quite pleasantly surprised with the overall accuracy of the Mi Watch. Especially the sleep tracking was much better than I expected. The Mi Watch was pretty good at tracking light sleep, deep sleep and awake time. The thing it struggled with most was REM sleep. However, based on the Mi Watch's results, I was still able to detect most of my sleep cycles. Heart rate detection was very good during my spinning cardio workout. However, during cycling outside and weightlifting it performed much worse. It would be interesting to see how it performs during running, since this also involves movement, but on the other hand the muscles in my arms might be more relaxed. The oxygen saturation measurements do not appear to be very accurate, with the Mi Watch failing to detect a decrease in my SpO2 levels. Finally, the step counting was very accurate, with the Mi Watch counting the correct number of steps while walking and not counting many false positive steps. So, should you buy the Mi Watch? Well, in general, I'm very positive about it. It's actually quite a beautiful watch and most of the measurements were quite accurate. If you want a relatively cheap but beautiful full-fledged smartwatch, I would definitely recommend it. The sleep tracking and step counting were pretty good and my heart rate was accurate during spinning. Just keep in mind that the SpO2 measurements were not very good and that during outside cycling and weightlifting the heart rate measurements were not very good. If you want a wrist-worn wearable that tracks your heart rate and SpO2 levels accurately in all circumstances, then you should get an Apple Watch. If you want the best sleep tracking from a watch, get a Fitbit device, like the Fitbit Luxe, Fitbit Sense or Fitbit Inspire 2. The Withings sleep analyzer, which you put under your mattress, also performs reasonably well. Finally, the Whoop strap has good heart rate tracking and good sleep tracking. However, this is a subscription service, so could be much more expensive. Finally, I should mention some of the limitations of the data that I showed here. First of all, I just tested the watch on me for a limited number of days and it will be interesting to see how it performs on others. To do a full sleep comparison, it would be good to also test the watch against a full scientific polysomnography setup. We actually assembled a polysomnography device using OpenBCI components and we're now working on getting this software functional. In my videos, I do scientific tests on different devices like the Oura Ring, the Fitbit and the Scanwatch. And in the end, I hope to use tracking to improve my life. So if you like that subject and like this video, consider subscribing to my channel and also consider giving it a thumbs up because it makes it easier for other people to find my videos. Thank you so much for watching. If you want more content like this, consider subscribing to my channel and also watch some of my other videos.